Alright, so in today's video, we're going to swap out my steering wheel with a stock steering wheel. As you can see, I've got some, what would you call this, Aidan?
Almost like peeling? Or...
Yeah, some peeling going on here. I do rest my hand up here a lot, so that's why it is like that. But got Aidan here. He's former mobile tech, and he's going to help me DIY this thing. Never did it before, so let's go ahead and get to it, I guess.
What you'll do is you'll take the screwdriver, and we've got two holes back here behind the steering wheel. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to push that into those holes, and you'll feel it pop. And yep, right there, push that in.
Yeah.
There it is. You got one release, and then the other side's going to be the same thing.
So I'm good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Basically, we're just unlocking the two springs for the airbag.
Okay.
And you notice how the steering wheel airbag comes forward when it's popped loose. So now you should be just about there. So there's three of them. There's one on each side. And we should be able to lift up and out on the airbag. If it's still locked, there may be one more that we need to remove.
Lift up here?
Yep. Yep, so we need one more to remove. So we'll go back into this one again. And sometimes it may require a screwdriver on both sides. What we'll do is we're going to tag team it. Okay. So use a screwdriver this size. If you'll go for yours, I'm going to go right in on mine. There you go.
There we go.
Heard the third one release?
Yep.
So what we're compressing is these three springs.
Here.
It catches on these three nubs right here. Here, here, and here.
Oh,
and
okay.
those go into these three springs.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're going through, you're compressing these spring retainers. And those are also your horn switches. So if you push down on them, that's actually your horn as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
Once we've got that, we're going to disconnect the connector from the steering wheel side. This one's your logic, this one's your airbag. We're not going to disconnect these because these are part of the actual airbag assembly, part of the airbag harness. Okay. So we'll disconnect both of these and then we'll keep going. Yeah. There it is. So there is your airbag. It's just one harness connector. Obviously you want to always be careful with an airbag, but it's never going to deploy. You don't have to worry about it being a, what do we want to call this? Just a grenade. You don't have to worry about it because it has to see a certain voltage to these pins in order to deploy. So you are safe working on it. So there's your airbag. So once we got that, you can see we've got a lot more room here in the steering wheel. We're going to do the same thing with the logic side connector. This is just your 12 volts. It's going to run all your steering wheel switches and everything. You'll notice when we unplug the logic, you're actually going to get an alert on the screen saying that your steering wheel switches have been disabled. Normal, and we can continue as usual. So.
Okay. You know, this is probably like the first modification I've done on this car.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Everything else has been pretty
well, you know what
vanilla.
they say, once you do the first one, the rest just snowballs.
Yeah, probably.
See how the connectors pops right out? And there's our warning. Steering wheel, buttons, and horn unavailable. Yep. So that pretty much has disabled the full steering wheel. Okay. With the airbag, it does not care that airbag is out until you hit the brakes. So obviously we have no airbag light because we don't have the car on, similar to a gas car. So once we've got that, we're going to take an H10 socket. Usually you want to use either 3/8 or 1/2-inch drive. 1/4-inch drive will snap because this bolt has got a lot of thread locker on it. You'll see there's some yellow thread locker. It just seals the threads in so your steering wheel doesn't come off while you're driving. So we'll go ahead and we'll hammer that, and we may have to bust out a ratchet board. So if you haven't noticed, like I said, Aidan is a former Tesla tech, and he's definitely been somebody who's helped me along my journey in EV ownership and to make sure that this is something that's been good for my family and definitely an enjoyable experience so far. So definitely reach out to him if you see him on the Facebook forums. He's definitely knowledgeable about what he's talking about. Please. Okay. And I'm going to put a lot of force on this. We're going to break that loose. There it is. There it is.
All right, cool.
Like we're saying, that thread locker is just really tight. Like it just gets those bolts really tight. Once you break them loose, they come out pretty easy. And if you ever have to replace the wheel again, now that you've broken that thread locker loose once, it'll always be a lot easier. Now with the steering wheel, you're just going to go ahead and wiggle it, and it'll wiggle itself right off, just back and forth. Yep. If you want to torsionally wiggle it too, just in and out, in and out. There she is.
Huh.
So now we've got the clock spring here, and you can see where our two logic connectors pass through on the clock spring, our 12 volt side and our airbag side. Same thing on the steering wheel, it's just hollow, it passes right through.
So we're gonna have to take some of these out from the inside?
We will. We'll need to get this wheel to transfer it over to the other one.
Okay.
But there's your clock spring. Now here's the one thing you'll want to take note of. You never want to spin your clock spring. So some people like to put a piece of tape across here to hold it in place. From factory, it actually has a red locking tab that would hold this in place, but that gets taken off whenever it's on the assembly line. So you just want to make sure that you keep these two horizontal with each other, and you should be good.
Okay.
So we're good with our old wheel, and we're good to go and put the new one in.
So
See our differences here. We've got our horn switches, we've got our harness. This whole plastic trim is going to come right out with just a couple screws. You can see those screws land. 1, 2, and 3. And the whole rest of it is just compression fit. So,
okay.
Cool. Let's grab a T20 and we'll go ahead and pull those out.
Aidan says this is what we need. There you go. And screws, the black screws.
Yep.
Yep.
So let me show you another trick too. One of the things that you can do, these horn switches will actually pop out. So you can grab it and it will pop out from the wheel. So we got 2, and there's 3, and now our horn switches are free.
Okay.
So those 3 are out of the way now.
All right. So
once we got that, we've got the main rest of the wheel. You're pretty much just gonna pry, and it's gonna pop right out. As you can see, it's already starting to, and it's a little unnerving.
yeah.
You just pretty much pry it out, and the plastic is all compression.
So there we go. So
And the cool part is this is the similar design on the S and X as it is on the 3 and the Y. And you can see we've got our bare wheel here with no guts. And we just have our spring left, and this is our compression spring for our airbag. We just got to pull it. What we'll do is we'll pop out the horn spring next. And the horn spring is a very easy one to pop out. Pretty much just grab it, pull it right out. And you'll make sure that you want to orient it correctly. And so that comes out, and then we'll just pop it right back into the new one.
I'll move this out the way.
It just slots right down into place. And you can see we've got our 3 points of contact. And it just sort of pops right in.
So then this just goes right in there.
Obviously you want to make sure all your wires don't get pinched or anything. And you want to just provide even pressure.
Oh, you guys are free to. Had my son bring out the Gatorade for you guys.
Oh, thanks.
So, for you, man.
Nice and even pressure.
Okay, so then we just put the screws back.
Yep, make sure your trim is nice and seated all the way around. Just looking all around this dark gray bezel, making sure we're all seated properly. And then same thing, 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then just good to go back in. Cool deal. So here's where it gets a little bit complex. So these horn springs, with these horn springs, if they're not seated correctly, your horn will go off when you go to boot the car back up. So if you're doing this at like midnight, kind of really want to make your priority to make sure these are seated correctly. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your thumb over the outlet. You can see that these are double layered springs. We're going to make sure we got no wires stuck behind it. And you're going to push down on it, and this is going to feel not great. You're going to push down on it until you hear a pop. When you hear a pop, that's not plastic breaking, that's it seating itself. So same thing on this side. Pop, and it's in. And you can also feel it with your finger, and you can see that there's no reveal underneath that lower part of the spring.
Yep.
And the rear one can be a little bit of a pain to get in. Okay. And sometimes they absolutely fight. Here on this one. There we go. Okay. So we've got the 2 sides. And do we have a rear? We do not yet. So there we go. Now we've got all 3 in. You should be able to give it the wiggle test. And everything is in. We can see that we're nice and flush with the metal. And so that's how we know we're good. Our harness is still easily accessible. I like to untie this harness or untangle it a little bit. Gives me a little bit more to work with when I'm plugging it back in. Just want to make sure that we're up underneath there at the end of the install. So
just seating it back.
Yep. Yep, and you felt it bottom out, and we heard it bottom out. a good way to look at that too is we can look at the splines. We can see between the metal of the steering wheel and the splines of the shaft, there's no free play. So it's bottomed all the way out.
So he's talking about like right in here.
Yep, same free play that we saw with the springs where it's just completely bottomed out. Once you got that, you're good. So with our steering wheel bolt, which will be our next thing, we always want to start this by hand. If you don't start it by hand and you start it with an E-ratchet or another tool, and you strip it, you're going to have to replace the entire steering shaft all the way down to the front steering rack, and that is very expensive, and that's something only Tesla can do for now.
All right, so it's in there.
Yep.
I got it started. Just turning it until I can't anymore. Stupid flag in here. All right, that's probably.
And I'll go ahead and give you the ratchet. And with this one, usually I like to use my knee or something to prop the steering wheel to make sure that it doesn't turn on me, and we're going to crank this thing. It is pretty much impossible to snap anything on this, so really just want to give it your all.
Famous last words.
Just make sure that it's nice and tight. Sometimes it may help to have somebody hold the steering wheel while you're tightening, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold this side of the steering wheel to the left. Now, when I see people tighten these, I see a lot of different methods. I always avoid loosening in the area of the windshield, because if you have a really long ratchet
that makes
and
sense.
you're loosening from this angle going that way, you can smack the windshield, and that's going to be about $1,000. So,
okay.
once we're comfortable with it being tight, we're going to go ahead and plug in our 12-volt logic. Perfect.
All right. Yep, that's not going anywhere. Just gonna plug this back in.
The nice part about these connectors, they only go in one way. So if you flip the connector over, it's not going to.
Yeah. So
Go in.
the plan is to get this connector back where it came from here, and then also tuck this under afterwards.
Yep.
So.
And these connectors, they are keyed, so they will only go in one direction.
Oh,
You
that's
can
good.
see how they've got these splines on them, or these drives. So
Yeah.
if you plug in the other way, it's not going to cause anything because it won't go in. So
Just tucked in here.
yeah.
Under. And.
And you heard the click.
Yep.
So our warning is gone. We heard our click. And the cool part about these connectors, again, is when they are seated all the way, these two tabs will go back to their up position. When the connector is loosened, they will go towards the inside. So just want to make sure that those two tabs lock all the way out. So
Okay.
it's also another good way to confirm it.
This goes this way, I believe.
It does,
if
yeah.
I remember correctly. And this isn't just gonna pop out on me.
Nope.
That would make for interesting content. So.
We're going to listen for the click again. We got a double click, so that's good.
Yep.
Yep. Sometimes I like to come back with my finger behind and just make sure that they are pushed in all the way.
Okay.
Both of them are. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. So, when we land the horn, we're going to set it in position, and then if it's not done right, the horn will go off. So we're going to make sure that we get it set into position, and this is going to look horrible. We are going to smack it, and you just want to make sure all three are seated properly. And once it's smacked in, it's good to go.
Okay, well that was easy enough.
And just make sure that all three are clipped in. Then what we'll do is just final step is we'll hit the brake pedal and start the vehicle to make sure that we don't have an airbag light. If we don't have an airbag light, then we're good to go. And we're looking at this one right here, and it went away. And then we'll just test to make sure all of our steering wheel switches work, all of our music buttons and everything, all your volume and everything, and if all that works, it's good to go. Yeah, that's how you do a steering wheel changeover.
Nice, appreciate it.
Not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. I'm sure you could have did it a lot faster, but yeah.
Well, I mean, with the precautions you gotta take with some of it, it's okay to take time. So
Yeah,
not too bad.
this steering wheel does feel like my wife's steering wheel, honestly.
I love the perforations in the leather too. That's nice to have.
Yeah, because I'm a person that drives like this, so.
Yeah.
Like I said, definitely hit up Aidan, and then there's Riley back there. We will definitely get their contact information to put in the video. See you guys on the next one.